On behalf of my fellow board members in the Town Manager's Office, I want to welcome you to our July 27, 2021 Board of Selectmen meeting. Tonight's live broadcast is being brought to you by Mark Serra and Caitlin Smith of the Shrewsbury Media Connection. In addition to tonight's live broadcast on channels 330, and Facebook, tonight's meeting will be rebroadcast on channels 30 and 330 from tomorrow until our next regularly scheduled meeting on August 10th, 2021. Tonight's meeting will also be available on YouTube starting tomorrow for your viewing pleasure. So we'll go to the items on the agenda. First item on the agenda is to approve bills, payrolls, and warrants. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is to approve minutes of the June 21st, 2021 workshop and July 13th, 2021 meeting. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is announcements and reports. Colleagues, any announcements? Mr. LeBeau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to briefly report to the board. We just had a Building Committee meeting, and I'm very pleased to report to the board that substantial completion of the Beal project occurred last Friday. That is a major, major milestone. Project continues to move along very favorably, on time, under budget, and something that was mentioned at the meeting tonight that I just want to call out for the board. I think we've all heard in our personal or professional lives a great deal of delays of all kinds of equipment and materials, often because of either COVID or actually I've even been told that I'm waiting for something because of that barge that broke down in the middle of the Suez Canal. And there are minimal equipment delays, and this was all because of very, very careful planning. And the members of the construction and design, owner's project manager, construction manager, and architect teams particularly recognized, the great cooperation of the town, but particularly recognized Selco and Brian LaRue, the IT director for Shrewsbury Public Schools, who they felt played very, very critical roles in making sure that a lot of the infrastructure was in place on time, and I wasn't reporting to the contrary to you this evening. So we're on schedule for opening and for dedication.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. LeBeau. Mr. DiPaolo.
I certainly can't match that, but site clearing for the police station started yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It'll continue for about 2 weeks, and then to start on the site work in about 8 weeks. Foundation should be started, and we're anticipating a groundbreaking ceremony around the middle of September. But so far, everything's on budget. We got the steel order in, the steel contract signed, the concrete contract signed, and site contract signed. And so far, we're good. So steel was a little shaky, but it came in actually a teeny little bit below the budget. But so far, so good. So.
Thank you. That's good news, given the inflation that we're seeing in a lot of the building materials area and raw materials generally across multiple industries. Any questions or comments related to those two? I just have, thank you, Mr. DiPaolo. I just have a couple announcements and then one small presentation. So we're extending the opportunity to apply for positions, first of all, in the Zoning Board of Appeals. There's one qualified individual we're searching for to fill a vacant term set to expire on March 31st, 2022. The date to apply has been extended to August 16th, 2021. The ZBA generally meets the last Monday of the month. I believe their next meeting is August 30th. So if we make the appointment in time, this individual will have an opportunity to serve on the ZBA. And the second one, and we had mentioned this at our last meeting, the board is also seeking those interested for the Affordable Housing Trust. There are three individuals that we're looking for. They only have to be residents of Shrewsbury. You do not need to be a registered voter. As a zoning board of appeals, you do need to be a registered voter, but any resident of Shrewsbury may apply. And this likewise has been extended to Monday, August 16th, 2021. So if you're interested, we would love to hear from you. And additional information can be seen or found on the Board of Selectmen's page on the Town of Shrewsbury website. And then the final thing that I have, it's a time-honored tradition, but COVID got in the way, and Mr. DiPaolo had informed me of this, although he wanted to hand this over to Mrs. Cassavant before the meeting. Typically, what's done is when someone serves as chair, they're given the gavel. And Mrs. Cassavant was chair during COVID and never had a chance to
Never touched it.
have the gavel. So now at the Cassavant House, Mrs. Cassavant will
Wonderful.
have the
I will
gavel.
preside over family meetings now with this gavel. This is wonderful. Thank you. Very sweet. Thank you, Mo, for thinking of it.
I personally, I think the bird was a better touch, but
I would have liked the bird clock, but I'll stick with the gavel.
How is the bird doing, actually? It doesn't know what to do.
doing
I
well,
know.
but he seems a little bit lonely.
Was starting tweets. That's all I have under announcements and reports, so thank you. Next item is Town Manager's Report. Mr. Mizikar.
Good evening, members of the board. Just one quick update, and then unfortunately I want to go over some COVID-19 information again. I'm happy to announce that Chief Kevin Anderson and his staff are preparing a National Night Out event for August 3rd, Tuesday, August 3rd. It'll be held here on the Town Hall campus. There'll be various opportunities for tours and events, including the Worcester County Sheriff's Office Mobile Command Unit, Town of Shrewsbury Emergency Management apparatus, police department tours, and at least a flyover of the Massachusetts State Police Air Wing during the event. So we're also excited to be offering a pop-up vaccination for COVID-19 event during that evening, so residents could come and get their shot if they haven't already, and we'll be providing more information on that in the coming days. So again, it's Tuesday, August 3rd, a week from tonight, here at the Town Hall campus. And then I wanted to just provide an overview to the board and inform the public that we are seeing an uptick in our COVID-19 cases. We've experienced, since we last reported to the Board of Selectmen on June 8th, a formal report, 22 cases. However, 17 of those cases have occurred in the last 7 days. So that's a marked uptick in the number of cases. And actually, we've seen several days of the upper single digits of 6 or 7 cases occurring in a single day. So we continue to report out our number of cases every Friday to the public, but given the general press about the Delta variant and other concerns, we just wanted to highlight that we are seeing a slight uptick in town as well. With regards to vaccination data, since we're updating, we have seen significant increases since, again, the last formal report. We have at least 72% of residents with at least one dose and 66% being fully vaccinated. That's an increase of over 4,000 individuals being fully vaccinated since your first meeting in June. And here's a little bit of data with regards to the vaccination. We are seeing significant vaccinations in a number of groups, but the group that lags behind most is those between the ages of 20 and 29, with less than 60% being vaccinated. So we still encourage everyone to consider getting the shot. It is your safest bet with regards to preventing at least significant challenges from COVID-19, and the town will continue to provide opportunities. Again, a pop-up event coming up next week. So if there's any other questions, happy to, if there's any questions, happy to answer them.
Any questions?
Is there any change to the masking policy in public buildings at this point?
There is not. The CDC has issued updated guidance at a 3 o'clock call, which our public health team participated on, and we'll be making those decisions in the coming days, if any are needed.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else? Mr. Mizikar, if you want to continue, Financial Business American Rescue Plan Act updates, the next item on the agenda.
So as the board will recall that we anticipate receiving about $11.5 million from the American Rescue Plan Act, which is a federal recovery bill that was passed in early March. To date, we have received $2,016,000 of our allocation, which represents 50% of the direct town allocation. We're still asking the state frequently about information regarding the funding that we anticipate receiving, which is over $7 million since we have a non-functioning county government. Unfortunately, those funds have not been released to the town at this point, and we have no certainty when that will occur. So we continue to have challenges in both planning and preparing for the use of these funds. It's obviously a big discrepancy of having $2 million on hand when we anticipated having about $5.75 million on hand. But we will nonetheless be coming to the board with a preliminary plan for you near the end of August. So we have also been able to utilize the guidance issued by the United States Treasury for a cost or a projection on the total revenue loss. So if we can identify a revenue loss through the U.S. Treasury's calculation, those funds can be used broadly. It's the most broad category of use for these funds. We've determined the initial revenue loss that we can calculate through the period of December 30th, 2020 to be $927,000. So almost 50% of the funds that we do have on hand falls into that broadest category. And we will highlight that for the board during your planning and prioritization process, which is coming up. We'll have 4 additional opportunities to calculate revenue loss. I would anticipate a revenue loss being anticipated for the period of calendar year 2021. But then extending into calendar year 22, I do not anticipate being able to calculate the revenue loss. So that loss that we've calculated is not an actual loss. We did receive more funding in calendar year 20 than we did in calendar year 19, but because we're allowed to apply a 1.4% general revenue increase factor, we do come up with the $927,000 after looking at actual revenues versus a 4.1% growth factor. So more information to come, but still a challenge to plan, and we'll continue to do that as best as we can.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. DiPaolo.
Just to follow up on what Mr. Mizikar said, when we were going through coming up to the override question that we had, we were asked multiple times why we could not use that money instead of asking for an override. And we said multiple times, and it's turned out to be true, that we can't depend on the money. We don't know when it's going to come. And at that time, we still didn't know specifically what it could be used for.
Right.
And this scenario is playing out just the way we thought. Why we're not getting the money from the state is a bit of a mystery, because we're supposed to get the money, not us, every city and town state is supposed to get funds, except for Plymouth County, because Plymouth County is still an operating county, right? Those funds are supposed to be dispersed based on population, and it seemed like, from what I read about federal guidance, it seemed clear, but for some reason, it's not clear to the state. But I guess the real point is, this is why you can't depend on these things. Until you have the money and you have the firm commitment, you can't count on it.
That's true, and what we've known all along, and as you mentioned, there's always been restrictions on the funding. And the revenue loss calculation, it's probably half of what we originally hoped for, being sub $1 million. So that in itself, again, together with the restrictions, while it may supplant some tax dollars as we move forward, it's not a cure-all, which is consistent from the ERA funds 12 years ago onward. We've always had a lot of restrictions, so thank you. It's a very good comment. Anything else? Mrs. Gassavan?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mizikar, a couple of meetings ago, you spoke about the potential for having done the BL borrowing to work against us when we're looking at revenue loss. Is that something that played into this number, this 927,000, and made it a little bit lower than I guess I was expecting it to be?
Yeah, I definitely think it does, because the Treasury guidance or rules require us to look at bottom line revenues from anything recurring year after year within the general fund. So, and you weren't allowed to exclude any particular funds that met that general definition. So because we took on more debt service between calendar year 19 and 20, again, when we looked at the bottom line, our actual revenues in calendar year 20 were greater than calendar year 19, but they weren't 4.1% greater. So we looked at that difference, and that's how we got the 920. So yeah, definitely that increase in revenue from debt service reduced the revenue loss calculation.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Just a quick question. So the 1.4% growth factor, is that tied to CPI?
I'm not exactly sure how they came up with it, but it's, what was given to us by Treasury to use.
Okay. The reason I ask is if we do get inflation that we were talking about earlier, is that something in terms of real dollars calculated going forward that may or may not help? I don't know, but, okay. Thank you. If there's nothing else, we'll go to time-scheduled appointments. The next item on the agenda is a hearing. It's a 7:05 PM public hearing with Michael DeLong, manager of Select Trucks of America LLC, doing business at Select Trucks of New England, 3 Commerce Road, for a Class 2 license. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, you know me, but my name is Richard Bricker. I'm an attorney with law offices at 11 Maple Avenue. I'm here with Michael DeLong, who's the manager of Select Trucks, the applicant before you, and also Kevin Holmes, who is the landowner, well, by virtue of the fact that he is the principal of the landowner and also the principal of Tri-State Trucks and Advantage Truck Group, which, as you know, is a sizable presence down in that section of our community. Select Trucks has been operating for about 14 years at this, at the location where Tri-State has been. This request is born out of a desire to split the lot and move Select Trucks to the upper lot, which now has frontage and a driveway on Commerce Road. So that is really what we're doing. I mean, we're really moving Select Trucks from one part of the lot to the other, but we're going to split the lots. We have split the lots with an A&R plan. And so that's the basis of this request. There's, to my knowledge, there's been no issues with Select Trucks operation. They've been there for, as I say, 14 years. They're a good member of the community, a giving member of the community, as is the landlord. And I'm proud to be here with them. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions, or can open it up at being the public hearing first? Mr. DiPaolo, go ahead.
Just to be clear, already have this license, you just have it on a different address.
Yes, we have it actually at the same address, except we've split the address up, so now
Right.
it's a different
So now it's a different address?
Yes,
Okay.
kind of a paperwork type of need.
Thank you.
Any other questions? This is a public hearing, so I will now ask for a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are now in our public hearing. Is there anyone here who has any questions or comments? I think the rain kept people away this evening.
It's not an earth-shattering request, I don't think, either.
I agree. Okay, going once, going twice, okay. There's no one here to speak for the record. If I could get a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. The public hearing is closed. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. LeBeau.
Mr. Chairman, I move the board approve the license application of Michael DeLong, Select Trucks of America, at 3 Commerce Road, Shrewsbury, for a Class 2 license.
I'll second that, and I'd just like to make a comment that I'm happy that you're able to stay in Shrewsbury. I'm on Route 20 a lot for some reason, and over the years, I've noticed that place is one of the cleanest places where you do truck service, and it, certainly in the town it is, and I commend you for that. I know you really try to keep it up, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's important to us to operate, and as we have been a member of the community since 2002, so thank you for that.
Any other comments before? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Thank you for
Thank you
coming.
very much.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Board.
Nice to see you all in person.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a time-scheduled appointment. It's a meeting with David Snowden, DPW Business Manager, to review and discuss the simple recycling program change and also an update on trash bags. Mr. Snowden, welcome.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us this evening. Mr. Holland as well, good evening.
I'm here for moral support.
That's great. Oh, thank you for coming.
Good evening, Board and Chair. So I'm excited to sort of review some of the more recent program changes with the textile recycling program. We've been under contract or an agreement with Simple Recycling since July 2019, and residents have the opportunity to place recently loved, I think is the word they like to use, items, clothes, kitchenware, and the like, in pink bags, very similar to our pay-as-you-throw bags, and leave them at the curb on their scheduled collection day. The program worked fairly well to date, and there have been some hiccups that we will review, but there's been about 3,000 pounds of material that have been collected over this period of time. And if we were to view that differently, and if those items were to end up in our solid waste stream, it would have cost the town about $10,480 to dispose of those items that we're able to potentially find a second home. So not only do we get these items out to other individuals, it does help the utility and the taxpayers as well. Moving during COVID, lots of industries were affected and impacted, and the town stopped receiving its reimbursement for the tonnage of collected material. It used to be a penny per ton of material collected. That stopped around probably March or April of last year, but the program continued. Residents could still put their items out as needed. Now, we were hearing of all the continuing changes that are sort of going across all the different industries. The driver shortage is also impacting Simple Recycling and their ability to staff accordingly. So they've proposed a new system where residents can schedule a collection. They can go online, just fill out the date. They'll give like a calendar of like what date they can choose and pick, and they will schedule a collection directly with Simple Recycling, and it doesn't have to be on their designated day. I did test this myself last week, and I was able to schedule a collection for 2 days later at my home. Some of the bigger changes that will be present would be the items will be collected at the doorstop, the front door, as opposed to the street. During COVID, items were possibly collected by other individuals that were not Simple Recycling or not collected, and there was some confusion with that. So the hope of leaving the items at the doorstep would prevent this from continuing forward and making sure that the items are being collected as needed. So leaving them at the door, they can schedule online, and pink bags will no longer be required. If you have pink bags, you can use them for as long as you want, but you can leave items out in a regular trash bag or cardboard box. As long as it's labeled and by the doorstep, it'll make it easier for the collection team to pick it up and identify it. And then moving forward, the town will receive a rebate of 5 cents for every completed and scheduled collection that the Simple Recycling is able to collect. We've made some significant changes to the town's website, and we have the form online where residents can log in and complete the form for collections. There will also be a mailer that goes out to the residents letting them know of the program changes that will be effective August 2nd, and how to also complete the form online. Previously sent over some instructions, sort of like a snapshot with some highlighted directions for the residents that we'll make available on the town's website. And we'll make sure that we also get this information out through all of our newsflash and social media resources. That's the basic overview of the program changes for the textile recycling, and I'm happy to answer any other questions related to that.
Colleagues, any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. DiPaolo?
So this is all precipitated by a driver shortage?
I'm led to believe that that's a larger part of it, that they don't have the drivers. And it's also, maybe there's only one or two homes that have something out on any given day, and the driver was driving that whole part of town. It wasn't as efficient or effective. But this way, they can figure out, okay, we have 30 stops on Tuesday, this is how long someone should be out, and they can plan accordingly. And they can cover more communities with less drivers, is another thought.
Mrs. Cassavant?
So, thank you for the report, and I'm glad to see that the program is going to continue. I know that in my household, we've been big users of this, but it is really frustrating when you put the pink bags out and the driver doesn't show up. And for me, it's like quite a distance to get them up to the top of my driveway. And then I get really frustrated when I'm walking the neighborhoods and I see people's bags are out and they haven't been collected and they sit there for weeks or days or however long it is and get wet. So I really do think this is probably a great change to the program. I think there's a misconception sometimes in the community that this pink bag program is run by Waste Management, and it's completely separate. They are not affiliated with one another. And then having it be picked up at your home, that's similar to what other organizations like the Epilepsy Foundation or Big Brother Big Sister do, where you go online, you schedule, and then they come and pick the items up at your home. So hopefully this works out. I mean, anything that keeps these items out of our trash stream, I think, is beneficial. So I'm glad that we're going to continue. Are you planning at all to sort of see how it goes for 3 months or 6 months and reevaluate, or are we just planning to continue moving forward indefinitely with them?
That's a great question. I think that there is a significant benefit for the community to have a service like this. There is, I think, a small lift that the town has to put in, and is mostly notifying the residents in the community that this service like this does exist. And we would probably have to put the similar effort with any agency if we wanted to sort of be in agreement with them. We can certainly review after a few months and assess if it's not really meeting our community's needs. That's probably the safest thing to say, but I guess I haven't thought of not continuing or presenting that option, but we always do have it.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? If you want to continue, thank you.
All right. Which would you like, hazardous waste or bag shortage?
Just waste, please.
All right.
For 100, Alex.
Sounds great, right? Okay, so we're going back to 2019 again. October, the town held a household hazardous waste event at Oak Middle School. The event had about 130 vehicles and attended. It ran from about, I think, 8 to noon. Some highlights, if this means a great deal to you, is 440 gallons of pesticide liquids were collected, 275 gallons of antifreeze oil, 385 gallons of flammable liquids. A lot of those things which may have been otherwise disposed of improperly, pouring down the sink in the backyard. The town generated about almost $4,000 in fees, which covered about 20% of the total cost of the program. The entire event was covered through Recycling Dividends Program funding from the state. We applied to Mass DEP yearly for grant funding based on how our pay-as-you-throw program does each year, and we use some of that funding to cover this event. We've continued to get a number of calls regarding the household hazardous waste events and when the town might be able to provide a similar service. We also do partake and participate in the weekend recycling events with some of our surrounding communities, but there is still a gap for hazardous collections. We have publicized in the past that residents can go to New England Disposal Technologies in Sutton, Mass. To dispose of their hazardous waste, but the cost was entirely borne by the resident. And what we have worked out with NEDT is a system where the town will fund the initial $6,600, and residents can go as many times as they want to this facility, but the first visit each year there'll be a $50 credit for that resident or that household. We have the opportunity to, fill up that funds if it runs dry, but it's up to us entirely. But essentially, it's just $6,600 a year that the town will support and hopefully help provide residents another opportunity to get rid of these items from their home and our waste stream. In doing this, the town also can apply for additional grant rewards, which hopefully will make this program self-funding in the long run. We can sort of continue to provide this option for the residents and continue to use that towards our state grant. And the document here, we have the pricing of the items that the residents will be able to bring, and it's by the pound for some items, including gasoline, antifreeze, latex paint, oil paints, flammable liquids, lawn and garden supplies, and then batteries, electronics, and light bulbs. There is currently 2 days that the residents can go, but they are open Monday through Friday, and if those days, which I'll find right now, are not available, they can call and schedule another time. Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. or by appointment. We'll make sure that all this information is readily available for the residents online, and we'll send out a number of news flashes out to make sure residents take advantage of this service. And one other note, NEDT, as I mentioned, has been taking items from residents in the town for a number of years. In 2019, 105 residents brought hazardous waste on their own time and funding. 2020, 131 residents did, and so far, as of 2021, 51 residents have used the services at NEDT prior to our agreement with them. And I think that's about the bulk of the hazardous waste matters, if there's any questions.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. LeBeau?
I don't really have a question. I think it's fabulous. I think people want to do the right thing, but if the right thing isn't available to them, they might not do the right thing.
Correct.
I've used NEDT professionally when I closed my business. I brought them out, but I've gone, my wife's actually gone and done the Tuesday, Thursday thing. They're an excellent company. All my dealings with them at my job, we've dealt with them as well. I think this is an excellent service that we can provide the residents for their benefit and just for the overall benefit of the environment. So I commend you for you and all who put this package together.
Appreciate hearing that. I wanted to make sure that we acknowledge, the staff in the business management division as part of our team goals. A number of the individuals within the business management division have performance goals, and this was one of them for one of the team members. Sherry Robbins helped put this together and move it forward, so very grateful for that.
Anybody else? Just if you look at the description of the groups, if you go into your garage or basement, we look at this list, it's probably everyone in town has a lot of these materials. So as Mr. LeBeau said, it's just a great opportunity to protect the environment and not dispose of it. Or what other avenues do you have to dispose? So like with the, just as much communication as we can with this for this opportunity. Just a quick question on funding. Is the original sort of seed capital amount funded by grant too, or is that out of pocket? And then after that, the expectation is it's all grant funded? It's a small amount.
Oh, no, we, in preparation for this fiscal year, we had budgeted a certain allotment for a hazardous waste event, and then we also anticipated using an equal proportion of the state funding for a hazardous waste event. We had known that this is something that the residents wanted, but in considering the world as it currently is and whether or not we could really host a hazardous waste event that would be safe for everybody, we thought that this might be the most reasonable option. To answer the question directly, the funding for this one is going to come out of the pay-as-you-throw utility, but it was just, it could have easily come from the grant funding at this time as well. So it was sort of at one and the same, I guess, at this time.
Thank you. Yeah, it's small
Yeah.
dollars and just a great result. Great, thank you. Anything else? If not, we'll go to trash bags. We've been
right.
waiting for,
This
so
is-
best for last. Thank
All
you.
right. So, pay-as-you-throw trash bags. We're all aware that the residents purchased the blue trash bags from a number of retailers in town. We've been made aware of a shipping and a manufacturing delay that have impacted the town and a number of other communities within the Commonwealth. The shipping delay goes back to the trucking that we've previously talked about. Waste Zero, who manages the pay-as-you-throw bags, also has a good relationship with FedEx, and they've been using that service to get the bags to the stores directly. But now FedEx is also falling behind, which is impacting the availability of bags at stores. The team upstairs is, when they hear of a store that doesn't have any bags, they're calling around and they're trying to find bags. As soon as we're made aware of one store that has them, it runs out within a few hours. So there should be additional stock by Wednesday and Thursday this week for the stores. And if they don't receive their full supply, they should by the next following day. The long-term plan is to possibly increase manufacturing or storage sites within the state so that Waste Zero can produce larger quantities of the bags and send them for storage up here or have their own manufacturing site up here as well. Their production schedule is very tight, so they're basically purchasing the bags and sending them out as fast as they can. I will dig more into that information. I want to just make sure we're fully aware of if there's anything else that's causing the delay in manufacturing. I wish I had better news, but we're trying to make residents aware of where the bags are as soon as we can, but we also don't want to cause a calamity by sending 12,000 people to one store. But as soon as we hear more, we'll make sure that we share that information with everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, we have received some email correspondence talking about a run on the bags, but we'll share information with them, and as it comes in, it's a strange time, right, for transportation generally, through a lot of raw materials, and just work with it and make sure we inform the public quickly as we can. But I agree, you don't want to send out a blast and have a rush on a store either, so,
Correct.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. LeBeau?
Are we considering or suggesting to the vendors that they limit how many packages they can sell? I'm seeing a March 2019 toilet paper situation.
Yeah, I think that those will be discussions that we probably will have if this continues, for another week or two, so we haven't yet, but we're gonna be going in that direction, I believe. Yeah.
Thank you.
And in the event that there's any damaged bags, we still do have some supply that we can replace to residents. We don't want them to feel like if they have a bag that's damaged or not functioning properly, they should reach out to DPW and we can replace bags as needed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Thank you for your timely report. Anyone else? Well, great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
And thank you
Take
for
care.
coming.
Good job, David. Glad I could help. Nicely done.
Next item on the agenda is a time-scheduled meeting. It's a meeting with Peggy Prouse, owner of Broken Creek Vineyard LLC, 614 South Street, for a change of hours to the Farmer Winery pouring license from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Saturday to 10 a.m., 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and Sunday remaining 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. Good evening. If you could introduce yourself.
I'm Peggy Prusi.
Oh, sorry.
Eric Prusi.
Okay.
We're the owners of Broken Creek Vineyard. I want to thank the board for hearing us tonight. The reason for the request for the hour changes, we've over the 5+ years we've been open, we've tried to figure out how best to serve our public, the public that comes to our winery, as well as hold some private tasting events. We're
somewhat limited with the hours we have now to try to perform both, service both the private events as well as the public tasting hours. And we had initially been doing private tasting events during the day on Saturdays and Sundays, but we're finding we're getting an awful lot of complaints from our customers saying you're closing too often for us to come. We don't know what your schedule is. So one of the things we're trying to do now is hold some of the private tasting events starting earlier. Some of the events that have asked to do it early, we've actually scheduled some events later in the day. We'll close early and hold them in the evening from 5 to 9, but we're getting some pushback that some of the events that we want to hold, the people don't want to do them in the evenings. They'd like to do brunch-type events. And because of that, we're asking that we actually are allowed to open at 10 versus at 12 so we can hold brunch events.
Any questions? So we had the materials in the drive. The only thing that was missing is a workers' compensation affidavit. Otherwise, all the paperwork. Is there a separate
Yeah, I
document too?
think I sent them in later. So 2 copies.
Okay. We'll follow up with that. It's one other document. But we can still take action and subject to submission of that. So what's the desire of the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I think Broken Creek Vineyard has demonstrated that they are a fine corporate citizen, and people enjoy the Prusi's operation very much. I think, like every other business, they're trying to serve their customer base effectively. This actually brings the closing hour from 11 p.m. to 10 p.m. Granted, if I did my math right, I think you're open 5 hours more a week under this. You could be open 5 hours more a week. I don't have any concerns about a brunch event, as I've had no concerns about others. I'm in favor of moving ahead with this.
I agree, and I'll second.
Any other questions or comments? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations. Thank you for coming in.
Appreciate it.
So next item on the agenda is under new business. It's to review and act on the updated application for change of manager and change of officers, directors for the all-alcohol club license of the Shrewsbury Sportsman's Club, Inc. on 304 Boylston Street. Colleagues, as you recall, on May 25th, the Sportsman's Club or the new board came, a couple of representatives and made a presentation to us, and at that time, we approved the applications. When the applicants went to the ABCC, their paperwork was kicked back just for a lot of administrative reasons, updated articles of organization, an affidavit related to workers' compensation insurance, and some questions on the officers and directors. So we also, in light of the additional information, reached out to the chief of police, and he had no concerns with the additional information as well, just to check that box. So rather than have them come in front of us, given that a substantial amount of the materials were the same, the suggestion was that we just take this action if the board desires, as is, with the materials that had been presented before, as well as the additional materials in the drive. And if that's the desire of the board, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. LeBeau.
Mr. Chairman, I move the board approve the amended application for club license for Shrewsbury Sportsman's Club, 304 Boylston Street, Shrewsbury. John Kosky as the individual of record.
Second.
Any questions or comments? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is review and act on the intermunicipal agreement with Westboro for inspection services. Colleagues, we're in front of us, we have just want to pull out the 2019 agreement, and Mr. Mizikar, correct me if I deviate off course here, but it looks like there are a couple amendments that are being requested from the 2019 agreement. The 2019 agreement had an agreement related to overlapping services for a wiring inspector. But there was also sort of a not formalized but similar arrangement for the plumbing inspector, to provide overlap services when the respective professional would be outside of the town. And what the 2021 agreement does is formalize so that the wiring inspector and plumbing inspector are both embodied in this agreement. And the other amendment is the extension of the term to 2021. It'd be July 1st, 2021, I assume, to June 30th, 2022, and those are the only amendments in here. Did I get that? Anything else? Or is that, okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
It's worked good, right? It's worked well.
Yes.
Move approval.
Second.
Any questions or comments? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is to review and authorize payment for the fiscal year 2022 Massachusetts Municipal Association annual dues payment. In front of us, we had the materials in the drive. There's an invoice for $5,334, and that is what we're being asked to approve, that payment.
Move approval.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is to review and act to designate the members and positions of the following as special municipal employees pursuant to Mass General Laws, Section 268A for police officer. This relates to, we have a member of the Shrewsbury Police Department who is in the process of moving over to the Shrewsbury Fire Department, and part of that process typically is to have someone, before becoming a full-time firefighter, is to be part of the call firefighter, and that is what this is meant to address. The police officer will continue, if for whatever reason there's an emergency situation, will continue to represent the police department during this period of time. It wouldn't be going in a phone booth and coming out as a call firefighter. So that is what that is the background for this. Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Item 14 is to review and act on the road closure request from Andrew Truman, Town Engineer, for a closure of School Street for the water main improvements for 6 weeks, starting in mid-August, from 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. Mr. Holland.
Good evening. Jeff Howland sitting in for Andy Truman, who was unable to make this evening. We are completing the FY21 water main replacement, and the last phase section is School Street. They are currently now on Main Circle. Once they complete Main Circle, they will move over to School Street. As you're well aware, School Street is very narrow. The existing water main is partially in the travel lane heading north. So it's in the middle of that, or on the middle to the edge of that travel lane, with a excavator, et cetera, to try to get through traffic would be very difficult. So we're recommending that, or suggesting that we close it during the construction period. We're anticipating it'll be mid-August. They are running a little slow on Main Circle due to ledge, so it might be a little bit later than that. We will, as we typically do, we will post on our social media outlets in the website. Once we get closer to that date, we'll know within a week or so of that time frame of exactly when that will be. We are working with Parks, as there's two entrances to Dean Park. We will try to make the southern entrance open as soon as possible. The previous contractor, when they did Main Street, actually has the water main on the north side of Main Street, and I believe about 20 feet onto School Street, so that shouldn't be long to have that one reopened. But the second one will probably actually close during the construction period, just so there's no confusion of when that's open, when it's not open, and we'll close it in the park right by the pond, not right at the entrance to School Street. Traffic will be open to local residents. There's 3 side streets on that road, so it'll be open for that. And as we do with all of our contractors, we work with the school department, as they will be at School Street's a school route. So we'll make sure that the contractor leaves it open for the school buses. The school department's been very good on giving us pretty accurate timeframes of when the school buses go through, so we'll know at 7:04, 7:12. Typically, we know fairly close of when they'll be there, and the contractor's given that time frame. And then we will make sure that Waste Management also has access to the School Street and the 3 streets during construction. We anticipate it'll be about 6 weeks. There is a lot of rock and ledge on School Street, so we know that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? The schools are starting a week later after Labor Day this year, so we have at least all of August. Mr. DiPaolo?
I have a question. So are the residents who are using that street going to have access from both sides all the time?
They will have access from both sides. You know, obviously, a water main job is a moving contract, so there will be police detail, assuming we can fill it. But there will be police detail probably on both ends to making sure that the general public doesn't go through, but the local traffic can get to their residents.
Okay. That's a long time to have that street closed.
That's
I mean, I
correct.
know it's a lot of work, but
That's correct. It is, fortunately, there is 2 good entrances, one off High and one off of Main. Obviously, Main's easier depending on where you are.
Yep.
But they will probably start, though I'm not 100% positive, probably start on Main Street and head north. So, but then they'll keep moving it. But it's easier just to shut it at Main Street and then have local traffic only.
can I just ask one of the?
Sure.
For the
Mr.
people
DiPaolo.
who don't go on the website and don't subscribe, there aren't that many, were there 40 houses and that, something like that?
Probably if you add the 3 side streets.
I think it would be worth mailing or having somebody just put flyers on their doors, just to make sure they know, because we all assume that everybody uses the,
It'll probably be easier if we do a flyer, because we'll also provide the map, because we actually have a detour map.
if you could do it, where it's not that many, I think it might be a good idea.
And we'll probably do it, about a week prior to. That way, we have a better idea. It's going to start, whatever, August 15th, whatever date that is.
Great, thank you.
Mr. LeBeau?
I mean, just because we frequently, there's always the individual we don't reach, so I don't think you mentioned it. We could do a targeted code red call as well.
Yes, yep. And I'll be honest, since we've done the social media aspect, we have received very few phone calls when we've actually done the road closures. I.e. Walnut Street, when we closed that during the day, we received 0 phone calls. So I think doing it this way has been very successful.
Good.
But
Anyone else? Just one comment. So on Main Circle, at times, part of the road wasn't passable, but we didn't know. So I moved over there about a year ago. So when we went down one entrance, we weren't sure until we saw we couldn't pass it. So that, I'm not sure if it will be the same thing on School Street, but there may be circumstances if it's the same way that residents actually can't get to their house if they go one way versus the other. That's during the day. I don't know if that will happen here, but that's something to keep in mind, too.
yeah, we will try to keep people notified, or maybe we'll try to keep posting of where they are in the process, because there is those 3 side streets, well, 3, then technically Beverly Hill Drive, so technically 4. And as they move north or south, depending which way they go, they should be able to come from the opposite direction easier, but depending on where they end up. So we can try to do that. Sometimes they bounce around a little bit, then when they start services, it goes back again to the beginning, and then, so.
They're working hard, and I know
Yeah.
they've been there at the Main Circle, so, good. Anything else? If
You
not,
sure it's Beverly Hill Drive?
Not Beverly Hill Drive, it's
Bonnie Dell.
Bonnie Dell Drive.
Yeah.
I know it began with a
You're
B.
gonna say, that's a lot of pipe.
It drives the other direction.
what's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval.
Second.
Any questions or comments? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
Next item on the agenda is to review and act on the special one-day common victualler license for the Spirit of Shrewsbury, September 24th through September 26th, so it's actually 3 days, but from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. at Oak Middle School, 45 Oak Street, in the Senior Center, 98 Maple Avenue, which is good to see after last year not being around. Is there any questions, or do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Any questions or comments? None. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next item is item 16, to review act on the one-day all-alcohol license request of Joe Youssef, St. Mary Syriac Orthodox Church, 1 Industrial Drive, for a baptism on August 6, 2021, from 6 p.m. to 12 a.m.
Move approval.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next item, review and act on the one-day all-alcohol license of Joe Youssef, St. Mary Syriac Orthodox Church, 1 Industrial Drive, for a wedding on August 7th from 6 p.m. to 12 a.m.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is to review and act on the town manager's appointment of Michael Diggins, 142 South Quinsigamon Avenue, to the Commission on Disabilities for a 3-year term to expire on June 30th, 2024, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 8J.
Move approval.
Second.
Any comments? None. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next item is under item 19, which we'll address shortly under policy, the next item, but it is to review and act on the proclamation request from Robert Ryan for Zachary Allen Rubley on behalf of Troop 158, Boy Scouts of America colleagues. We have suggested recitals in front of us that were in our drive, and if I may, I just make one suggestion where we have under the recitals, where it says, now the Shrewsbury Board of Selectmen thank Zachary. My suggestion is please to acknowledge Zachary for contributing to the enhancement of a town park and congratulate him on his accomplishment. And that's just a suggested edit.
Move approval with the chair's edit.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion, I say aye. Motion passes unanimously. Next item is what we were waiting for since last meeting, was amendments to Policy 30. As you recall, we had talked last time about this very situation, whether or not board go through this process under Policy 30 for the ceremonial type of acknowledgements and the proclamation policy. Mrs. Cassavant took the pen and has suggested edits under Section 4, proclamation requests for an individual achievement. You see the language that's highlighted, otherwise there weren't any changes, although Mr. DiPaolo had mentioned something real briefly before we started the meeting to add one. The suggestion is to add one further qualification that it can be approved by the chair of the Board of Selectmen. So the board, the chairman or chairwoman or chair for that matter, can sign on behalf of the board, given that it's a proclamation. So thank you, Mr. DiPaolo, for that suggestion. So it would be in front of you as amended with that requirement. Is that right?
That's what I
I think that makes sense.
I just think that somebody from the board needs to
Yeah, no, that
prove it
makes,
because
that
we're doing the proclamation, so I think
it's a good suggestion.
Get it done.
I'm fine with that. Everyone good? I'll entertain a motion to approve the policy, the amended policy as amended during this meeting.
So moved.
second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. So I'll go now to correspondence. We will be going to executive session, but I'll get to that momentarily. Under correspondence, under item 22, email dated July 9th, 2021, from Representative Hannah Kane regarding the fiscal year 2022 budget update. Just talking about that the House and Senate had provided final passage of a $48.1 billion state budget, and she set forth the amount of Chapter 70 state aid as well as unrestricted government aid. We appreciate her hard work on behalf of our town. So noted. Next item is email dated July 10th, 2021, from Joy Buck, 11 Graylock Avenue, regarding a riveting television show on the Turner Movie Channel. I guess that's what it was. So thank you for that. So noted. Next item is email dated July 13th, 2021, from Animal Control Officer Keith Elms regarding the quarterly Animal Control Officer ACO report. I did not realize that we had a goat in Shrewsbury, but we had a goat in that report, so thank you for that. So noted. Next item is an email dated July 15th, 2021, from Ron Kay, 21 Eaton Place, regarding the Beale School reuse plan. Mr. Kay provided a website to recently visit Colorado, his recent visit to Colorado Springs, and it set forth a building similar to Beal in some revitalization that they did. It was good to see and be able to compare and contrast what they've done with their urban renewal and public grant program, as well as versus the Beal process that we've had here in going through the open market process. But it was very helpful to see that. So noted. Next item is email dated July 21st, 2021, from Representative Hannah Kane and Senator Michael Moore regarding public safety police body cameras funding. We appreciate and are thankful that not less than $50,000 shall be expended to the town of Shrewsbury for public safety improvements, including the purchase of 40 police-worn body cameras. So we're very thankful to Representative Kane and Senator Moore for their ongoing advocacy and for this being included in the budget.
Mr.
So
Chairman?
noted. Yes,
I'm sorry,
Mrs.
can I ask a
Cassavant.
quick question on the body cameras? Just because I think people may hear that and think that they'll be purchased and put on police officers like next week. What is the process that happens after this?
So we are developing and drafting a formal policy for the use of the body cameras, and we will negotiate with the Patrolmen's and Superior Officers Union about agreement for their use and that policy. And then we will also have to ensure we have appropriate contracts in place for cloud storage and management of the video once it comes in, because it's very intense and will be used in most court cases and things like that. So it will also include the promotion, which is in the operating budget, of another individual to a sergeant's position to oversee this and other administrative duties. So there are a couple steps left, but this was the largest unfounded piece of funding for this program.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Nope. Thank you. Next item under correspondence is an email dated July 22nd, 2021 from Nina Mohanka, 8 Deer Run Road, regarding she was sending in her resignation. She has served on the Shrewsbury Cultural Council for many years. She did an outstanding job for our community, not only here, but of a lot of other areas. We're thankful for her service and wish her well on her next adventure to Florida. She will be missed. So noted. Next item is an email dated July 22nd, 2021 from Sanam Zaire of 8 Jamie Lane regarding suggestion for Affordable Housing Board of Trustees. Ms. Zaire and a couple other individuals noted that we had posted the affordable housing, that we were looking for 3 trustees from that any resident of Shrewsbury could apply for, and just wanted to suggest potentially a cash stipend to be given to candidates who live in affordable housing. I did follow up with her to see what she was suggesting and that if other communities had done the same. And while it was noted that while communities pay stipend, as Shrewsbury does for some positions, none others had done similar to what they were suggesting, but I wanted to share that information with you, the thought being some equivalent per hour is something to look at to possibly open the door to others. That could be a discussion in the future, but that's that. So that was my response to her, that I'd share that information with all of you. So noted. So if there's nothing else, anything else? That's it for the formal part of the agenda. At this point, I will entertain that we go into executive session. I'm seeking executive session for the following reason. Under General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, or lease of value of real property, the former Beal School at 1-7 Maple Avenue. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move the board vote to enter an executive session pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 2, for the purposes listed on the agenda.
Or second? Been moved and seconded, and a roll call vote is required. Mrs. Cassavant?
Aye.
Mrs. Flynn?
Aye.
Mr. DiPaolo?
Aye.
Mr. LeBeau?
Aye.
Mr. Samia? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. The board will now convene into executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, or lease of value of real property. Furthermore, the board will not reconvene back into open session. Thank you for joining us, and good night.